Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're gonna be exploring a single chapter of Genesis, just chapter 21. But believe me, it's jam-packed with enough twists and turns for like a whole, I don't know, like a Netflix series or something. We're talking family drama, we've got political maneuvering, we've even got like a wilderness survival story in here.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how much you can pull out of this one chapter, about the ancient world. And honestly, you might be surprised by how relevant some of these themes still are today.
Totally. Okay, so picture this, right? Abraham, he's 100 years old, finally has a son, Isaac, with his wife Sarah. So you would think that, everyone's going to be totally ecstatic, right?
Well, yeah, you'd think so, but
Yeah.
it's actually not quite that straightforward.
But
I mean, you have to remember that back then, having an heir, especially a firstborn son, it was everything. It determined, your whole family line, your wealth, your place in society. And don't forget that Abraham already has a son.
Right. Ishmael.
Exactly, Ishmael,
Yeah.
with Hagar.
Yeah. And Hagar was, remind me, she was an Egyptian servant, right?
That's right, an Egyptian servant. So you can see how this could lead to some tension.
Yeah. Talk about a recipe for some family drama, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also really important, I think, to keep in mind the cultural context here. It wasn't completely unheard of back then to have children with your servants, but the arrival of Isaac really kind of throws a wrench in the established order. Suddenly there's this conflict over who's going to inherit all of Abraham's wealth and carry on his legacy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, right? Because this one little detail about inheritance, it speaks volumes about just the whole power dynamic of that time, and it makes you think about how these ancient customs, they still kind of echo even in our own modern ideas about family and legacy and all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of wild.
Absolutely. And so in Genesis 21, things really come to a head when Sarah, she insists that Abraham has to send Hagar and Ishmael away.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
I can't even imagine.
Being Abraham,
Yeah.
being caught between your wife and your firstborn son.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to make that choice.
Right.
But we also see how important God's covenant with Abraham is in all of this. Like, even when Abraham is told to send Ishmael away, God reassures him that Ishmael will also become the father of a great nation.
Absolutely. And that's such a powerful reminder, I think, that God's plan often unfolds in ways that we just don't expect. Like, even when it seems like one door is closing, another one might be opening.
And this is where we really get to Hagar's story, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to kind of overlook her in the midst of all this, like, family drama. But her experience is so powerful. She's basically banished, right? Like, sent out into the wilderness with her son and very little supplies. Can you imagine just the fear and uncertainty she must have felt?
It's one of those scenes that's really stuck with me, even after, years of studying this text.
Yeah.
You have to picture it. The scorching desert sun, the endless sand, and Hagar. She's desperate to find water for her son.
It's heartbreaking.
The text tells us that when their water ran out,
Yeah.
she placed Ishmael under this bush, and then she went off by herself to cry, like she couldn't even bear to watch him die.
Oh, wow. That's just, it's heartbreaking, but also, can we talk about Hagar's strength here for a second?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't give up, right? She fights for her son's survival, even when all hope seems lost.
Absolutely. Her story is such a testament to, the just fierce love of a mother and the lengths that someone will go to for their child,
Totally.
And it's in that moment of just utter despair
Yeah.
that something incredible happens.
Divine intervention, right?
Yeah.
God hears Ishmael's cries and miraculously provides a well of water,
Trouble of water, yeah.
saving them from certain death.
Amazing.
It's such a powerful reminder that even when we feel totally alone, totally abandoned, we might be surprised by where we find help and support.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to this recurring theme in Genesis, this idea of God testing those who he has chosen.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just Abraham who faces these trials of faith. It's Hagar too.
Okay.
And through this really difficult experience that she goes through, we see her faith affirmed and we see her strength rewarded.
So we've gone from family drama to a wilderness survival story.
I know, right?
And now Genesis 21, it takes us in a completely different direction.
Totally.
We go from a mother's desperate plea to, like, the halls of power, right?
Yeah.
Abraham finds himself negotiating with Abimelech, who is the Philistine king.
Yeah.
Talk about a plot twist.
It's a big one, and it's a really crucial turning point in the narrative, I think.
Okay.
Because, you have to remember, this is a time when resources were incredibly scarce.
Right.
And land ownership, that was everything.
Yeah.
Wills in particular were vital for survival.
Totally.
Like control over a well meant control over life itself.
Which is why this covenant, this formal agreement between Abraham and Abimelech,
Yeah.
it's such a big deal, right?
Huge, yeah.
It's not just about like sharing a water source. It's about establishing peace and stability in this region that's, kind of known for being volatile.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big deal.
And the text goes into some detail about how this covenant is sealed. Abraham gives Abimelech 7 ewe lambs as a witness.
Okay.
Now, you might be thinking, why 7 lambs? Why not something, more valuable?
7 lambs. It seems kind of random, right?
Yeah, it kind of does. Like, why 7?
Yeah, like why not, I don't know, like a chariot or something.
Exactly. You'd think it'd be something a little more, impressive.
Right, exactly.
But, in that time and place, these little details, they were actually really important.
Okay.
Remember, we're talking about a culture that was super into symbolism.
Right.
And the number 7, it had this deep religious significance. It often represented like completeness or, a covenant.
So it's like by offering these 7 lambs, Abraham isn't just, making like a casual agreement. He's invoking something much bigger.
Yes, exactly.
Like a sacred thing.
Totally. He's making it like a binding oath before God.
Wow.
So this agreement, it can't be easily broken.
Right.
And it's right here in this moment of like pact making that we get the naming of Beersheba, which means literally well of the oath.
Okay, so this place, it's marked by this covenant. It becomes like a symbol of peace and cooperation.
Yes.
In this land that's, so often marked by conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why Beersheba continued to be such an important place, like throughout the Bible?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, for sure. Beersheba kind of stands as this testament to diplomacy,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's possible to find common ground, even between people who could be enemies.
Totally.
And it reminds us that these agreements, they were about way more than just, who gets to use the well or who gets this land.
Right, right.
It was about survival.
Wow. It is just incredible, this one chapter of Genesis chapter 21. It's taken us on such a journey. Like we've gone from family drama, we've seen a mother's just unwavering love. There's political maneuvering, and then ultimately this message of hope and resilience.
It's really something else.
It really is. What stands out to you the most from all this?
It's hard to pick just one thing, but I think what really gets me every time I come back to Genesis 21 is this idea of unexpected strength.
Okay.
Like we see it in Hagar, facing this impossible situation, this wilderness, with such courage.
Right.
And we see it in Abraham, too.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out these, family dynamics, political realities. It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
And even in just the idea of a covenant itself.
Yeah.
It shows that humans are capable of choosing to work together.
Cooperation over conflict, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. It makes you think. These ancient stories, they're not just like, old tales from a long time ago.
I know, right?
They have something to teach us about what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
Insights that are honestly just as relevant today as they were back then.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap up our deep dive into Genesis 21 for today. But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about. If you were in Abraham's sandals, facing those same challenges, what choices would you make? And how do you think those choices would shape your own legacy?
That's a good one. It's definitely something to think about. Until next time.
Until next time.